So Dr. Jamie Marich recently released her new book, Dissociation Made Simple. And I was one of the 61 contributors to this book. One of my pleas to Dr. Jamie Marich was to express to therapists to not be afraid to talk to the various parts, particularly littles, child identities. And she definitely stepped up to the plate for us. I feel inspired by that to come here today and expand on my request. One of the frustrations that I experienced in my own therapy was this lack of knowledge on what to do with the littles. I'm lucky enough to have a therapist who willingly dived right in despite her discomfort and was willing to learn from all of the garden system. Many of my friends with DID, however, were experiencing the exact opposite. The stories range from having their littles mocked by therapists to being ignored or to being told to snap out of it. I felt so appalled for my friends. It didn't make any sense to me that a therapist would treat anyone in such a manner. After all, aren't the littles the ones holding the trauma? Don't they deserve a place to process all that happened to them? Then I learned that there was this idea, this theory that was not only floating around, but actually being taught to therapists, that if parts are acknowledged or spoken to, that the dissociation is being indulged. It'll create further dissociation. It's just encouraging those parts to continue to break away or split off, and that's just maladaptive. There's this belief that if a switch occurs, that the client is attempting to be avoidant, attention-seeking, or manipulative. So I'm here to challenge this thinking. I'm here to call out anyone who thinks any of these things, and most especially, I want all of us to stop using the terms maladaptive switching, attention-seeking, and to be extra careful before using the terms avoidant or manipulative. Every part exists for a reason, and parts front for a reason as well. So maybe you need to talk to that part. Jenny, one of my little parts, stopped another part from talking in therapy. And my therapist could have very easily written us off as avoidant, but she didn't. She talked to Jenny, and she was able to uncover a piece of trauma that explained why Jenny switched and kept the other part from sharing. Remember, many children are told not to tell what happened, to keep it a secret. It's usually accompanied with threats to hurt someone close to that child if they tell. Jenny wasn't being avoidant. She was being protective. She thought the bad people would come and kill our therapist if the other part revealed the secret. It was an opportunity for the therapist to build trust with Jenny. Don't miss that opportunity. I'm in graduate school and currently in my practicum. And last semester, I had to take a research class and write a quantitative research proposal. My proposal stated that speaking directly to parts actually decreased dissociation and that ignoring parts increased it. I truly believe you all who go about preaching not to indulge the littles or any other part are actually doing the opposite of what you intend. And I'm going to explain how this works with Hershey bars. Okay? Singletons, that is everyone that does not have dissociative parts. Identities, headmates, peoples, or whichever term you prefer, are like this whole Hershey bar. You all have your own various parts of self, like your parent part, work part, spouse part, etc. But you're all connected, and you see yourself as whole. You remember what each part said and what each part did because you are connected and identify as a single person. Plural systems, those of us with multiple identities, are more like this Hershey bar over here. The parts are separate. Here's Leanna, who goes to work. Here's Sadie, who goes to school. Here's Jenny, who holds some of our worst trauma memories, and so on. My first question to you therapists and experts on not indulging parts like this: which part do you talk to then? Which part is not the dissociative part that you must avoid indulging? Can you identify the host, if there is one? Which part is the original personality? I can almost hear some of you saying, well, the one with the legal name. Even if that were true, what would you do if none of the parts goes by the legal name? If a part did go by the legal name, are they even the host? If there's a host, the idea that you would only address one part is absolutely ridiculous. If you're refusing to acknowledge all of these other parts, headmates, then you do not have the whole picture. You're missing key information to help your client. What we learn when you only address one of us, okay, is to suppress other parts of ourselves. We push them farther and farther away. We will further separate ourselves, thus making it more difficult to get along internally. It's more difficult to actually remember what we've done. We will lose even more time. Because we're trying to block ourselves out, these other parts, and act like they don't exist because you told us they don't. They don't exist. But they do exist. And they'll just get better at hiding stuff from each other and from you, the therapist. In order for us to thrive and grow and function, you must acknowledge all parts. Accept them. Talk to them if they wish to speak to you. Not all parts want to be spoken to directly, but sometimes you can speak through one part to another. You can validate the existence of that part. When you do that, we can accept all of ourselves. That's when the parts start coming together. That's when the parts start cooperating with each other and trusting each other. Parts will stop attempting to block out other parts. We will remember more. We will be more grounded and present in the here and now because we will be aware of each other. This will help us to manage the symptoms we find most distressing. And please remember that what makes a diagnosis is whether or not symptoms are causing the client distress. We get distressed about losing time. We get distressed when the parts inside of us are arguing and yelling at each other. I have encountered very few people that are distressed about having parts at all. So stop deciding what our end treatment goal needs to be without us. Stop forcing your clients to become singletons when they don't want to. People don't have to be normal to your standards to be mentally healthy. So stop teaching therapists to gently ease clients into accepting final fusion integration by tricking them into believing you don't have that as a goal. Okay? You don't get to decide that for us. I also want to take a brief moment to address this other concern that therapists may inadvertently create new parts or identities by acknowledging the ones already there. There's this idea that we continually split or spin off new parts, and that is also a very bad thing. Let's just kind of reframe our perspective on this idea as well, because I don't believe that discovering a new part is worsening the dissociation. In fact, I think the exact opposite. Let's look at this Hershey bar. See, each identity is like a piece of a puzzle to the entirety of our system. And I do want to acknowledge that not everyone likes the word system, so please feel free to use the term that best fits you. So here are the identities we know, but you can see there are gaps. We don't have the whole picture here. When a new part shows up, what's really happening is that we're finding what belongs in those gaps to create a bigger picture of what we already know. If talking two parts brings them closer together, then it would make sense that parts that may have been hidden start coming to light. Essentially, we're learning more about ourselves. So new parts are actually a sign of increased awareness, co-consciousness, and less dissociation. So talk to us. Talk to all of us. Stop being afraid of us. Stop being afraid of what to do if a little shows up. If a little shows up, be honored. You don't have to necessarily talk down or with that annoying voice people use when they speak to babies, but just realize you might not be able to speak to them in the same way you speak to an adult part. Find out how that part wants to be addressed or spoken to. Find out what they want to be called by you and honor it. Thank them. Every part exists for a reason. When parts front, there's usually a reason. Maybe have some curiosity for what made them front for you. Each and every identity is your client too. Treat all of us, not just one.